Okay, we're back again for our third segment on talking about racism. And Michael McAuliffe and Chiffon Wong are with us just to talk about, in this third section, unity and where we go from here. So who would like to go first?
I can share an experience based upon some experiences I've kind of had in the late summer to the fall, which I think of as a pretty good example. So I'm a town meeting member here in Burlington. I represent Precinct 4, and I am the only Black town meeting member. And I had been attending some school committee meetings and sharing some perspective there and offering my services in collaboration. And based upon people kind of hearing me, people started reaching out to me in the community. And there was one person in particular who reached out to me. She is a white woman, and she really shared that she is beginning her journey. And she was surprised at just how much she didn't know, how much she had not considered what's been going on. And she felt like she had been living her life with blinders. And she really was, she told me she was saddened by it, she was embarrassed, and she was ashamed. And she was like, could we just talk? you know. And when she reached out to me, I had some familiarity with her, but we had never really had communications before. So we had been in similar spaces, but didn't really have a relationship. And so I responded to her and I said, sure, let's talk. And we just kind of talked a little bit. And she showed me how much she wanted to get more involved, but that she had a lot to learn. And she said, can you share some resources with me? So I shared some resources that I thought might be helpful for her to do a bit of education. I think that's really important, for people to take ownership for educating themselves, right? To do some of their own work. And we really cultivated a relationship. And she was like, I have a question about this, and what do you think about this, and how can I support what needs to be done? How can I mean, it's really important, because I'm privileged to even do a lot of work with the NAACP, and our branch is a multiracial branch, and there are many topics in which people of different races are working together interdependently towards things that we share common value with. And there'll be situations in which I've had some of the white people in the NAACP say to me, we need Black leadership here. I will participate and I will follow. I will follow. And so I was so encouraged just to see there are members of the community who really see the need to come together to work. I've been so encouraged when I've seen the rallies in the Commons and the work being done by the interfaith clergy and people who are coming together. As we try to really make some improvements in the school, there were so many people who signed letters advocating and standing with us. There were so many people in town meeting who also identified a need. And so I think it's an exciting time for people who are beginning to learn to reach out, because the town has a lot of resources. Like the library has been doing a really good social justice series. There are groups such as Burlington Against Racism, where you can volunteer a couple of hours a week to do something that can advance these things in town. And so I've been encouraged that the town is coming together, segments of the town, to work together to improve things. And I mean, that's what where do we go from here has to look like. We kind of have to move beyond shock at this is really happening. We have to acknowledge that there are challenges, and then we have to begin to think, how do we work together towards solutions? And so as much as I've seen that over the past 100 days, and I've begun to see that in many spaces, I've been encouraged by
that. Chiffon gave a great concept. Let me try to be simple on my side. Because I think what Chiffon's doing is so amazing, because she's really driving the banner to really make it a long-lasting, sustainable solution. I think some things I would always encourage is that, look, just don't support racism. Whether it's a joke, whether it's a comment, or whether it's a social media, just don't support it. Just really be bold and say, and just not support it. Second is that people have different talents. Take advantage of people have different talents, how they contribute to society, how they contribute to their communities. Leverage the talent that they have. Meaning that if you feel like you're able to speak to someone, or you want to talk or learn, or you have a good way of collecting data, just figure out where you feel comfortable and where your talent is to try to help combat the situation. And do it if you have passion. I wouldn't do something if you feel like you're just wanting to, that you think it's the right thing to do. Just really, really do something that you feel passionate about, where you feel like you can help. And then fourth, learn. Be proactive in asking questions. And if you do it from the right place, meeting people where they are with an open heart, then I think you'll make a long way. Those are 4 things I would consider, not just for Burlington, but anyone who was combating racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Let me ask another question, and I think it goes back to our last session. How can people start to have a discussion about racism and race relations? How do you see that happening, especially even for our own congregation?
Let me try to start, and is that you have to come from a place of trying to understand the situation. I've had people come to me and say, look, I don't really understand, but I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a question. That's when people are seeking knowledge, or just, look, I just want to understand your perspective. When a white person tells me that, I feel like, okay, they really want to understand. But so if you come from a place where by willing to say, if there's something in your heart and you express it out of love, and out of really want to getting a better understanding, then that sets such a strong message, a strong set of kind of unarming. Look, I'm here to learn. I want to understand what's happening. I want to understand what you've experienced. The person might not have the answers, but because they're willing to learn, that's such an important step in my mind. Siobhan, what would you add to that?
I concur with you. That open-mindedness is really important. That willingness to explore, and to also be very respectful in exploring, because these conversations can be very sensitive, depending upon, the topic. And I think if you're approaching people while you have an open mind, there also has to kind of be a little bit of a spirit of acknowledgement, because people don't want to be told that their lived experience isn't true.
Yes.
Right. So if I've lived something, you kind of can't come to me and you may not understand, but you don't want to do anything that would in some way come across as being dismissive.
Yes.
And so there's this framework that we have used in some of the equity work that we do, and it talks about the 4 agreements of courageous conversations. And so the first principle is stay engaged. So staying engaged means that you have to remain morally, emotionally, intellectually, and socially involved in the conversation. So you kind of have to be willing to do that. So if you start a conversation and then someone says something that you kind of socially don't like, fleeing will be very counterproductive to kind of having the courageous conversations. You kind of have to commit to, if you go down this road, to staying engaged. And then there's also this principle of experiencing discomfort. So this norm kind of acknowledges that discomfort is inevitable, especially when we talk about this topic, and that participants have to make a commitment to bring issues into the open. And it's not talking about these issues that creates divisiveness. Some people say, well, talking about racism is divisive. If we acknowledge differences, we're being divisive. No. The divisiveness already exists in our society and in the spaces that we live in, but it's only through that dialogue, even when it's uncomfortable, can we begin to have healing and can we begin to have change. The third principle that we talk about is speak your truth. So this means being open about thoughts and feelings and not just saying what you think others want to hear. And when you speak from the I. You speak from the I instead of they, or we and you. You speak from the I, right? Because when you speak from the I, you're talking about your lived experience. And then the fourth kind of principle is expect and accept non-closure. This is the challenging one because sometimes you want to go into the conversation and you kind of want to like, we talked about it and it feels, we had an ooh-sa moment and it's concluded and we go away. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes we're in this zone of kind of hanging out with uncertainty. And so it's important to not feel the urgency to be quick to rush to solutions or quick to rushing to having the same perspective, because this may be, an ongoing dialogue. So those are some things that people may want to think about. Engagement, be okay with discomfort, speak your truth, and accept that there may not be closure in one conversation. It may be part of an ongoing dialogue.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Stefan. I really appreciate those. You kind of were able to lay them out for us really clearly. I appreciate that. As a congregation, as the Burlington Church, I think one of the things that we identify ourselves as is trying to create an atmosphere of being a family, of being people who are respectful and caring and who nurture healthy relationships. But I'm wondering, in that vein, what are things that we have to change or move towards as a congregation to kind of help address some of the things that do happen?
I think it's hard right now because of the social distance and the pandemic puts a lot of constraints. I mean, one of the easiest ways in my mind is always breaking bread with someone, sharing a meal with someone, willing to be able to learn a little bit more about the person. It's hard to when someone is inhuman, when you say that they represent a kind of a generalization or a character, it's easy to kind of treat them a certain way. But once you know this person and you feel like, hey, oh, I know this person. This person doesn't act this way, or this person doesn't fit this stereotype. So the more we get the chance to know each other, and I think always for me is having a meal, spending a little time talking to people, maybe spending time with people you don't talk to all the time, and be willing to listen and meet them where they are a bit, I think will be very, very useful. People telling me hello sometimes at the church that might not tell me hello all the time, or just, hey, how you doing? Those little things I think really starts to relationship building, and that's when we really think of ourselves as brothers and sisters in Christ. Yep.
Okay. Great.
You mentioned the term family, and this is something that I'll share, and I don't know how much this is about the solution as to, and how can I express this? So I have been in spaces where there were things that were happening in the world that I know if someone's my family, they would understand how devastating something might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of being a family is being able to empathize.
That's a good point. Very good.
And I have sometimes been in spaces in congregations where I didn't feel like the people around me could empathize with me.
Mm.
And so I think we have to put a premium on being able to empathize.
That's very good.
With one another.
Very good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a wonderful point. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for just spending this time together and for working through this for many days and just kind of walking through this. Is there any last thought you wanted to make before we close this segment out?
I would just love to hear feedback from people who listen to these videos.
Okay.
I would love for them to listen and to reflect a bit and to let us know how what we shared made them think about things, think about themselves. I can't wait to hear people's perspective on what we've shared in these conversations and how they've processed it.
Awesome.
I guess the point I would make is when we had that period of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the Arbery situation, it became very tense. And a lot of my white friends didn't know how to approach me. You know, they feel very uncomfortable. My ask would be is that, you know, those things have kind of subsided a bit now, you know, and so what I would say is that if you have a question, it's okay to have an uncomfortable conversation. Yep, it really is. And be willing to ask the question, because it's the only way how we're going to grow and learn. So my ask is that for members of the body to really be, if they want to know, just ask. And just make, and to Chifon's point, just be a little bit empathetic and recognize that the experience that we see, although is different, and just got to put it in perspective sometimes, because something that for you may not seem to be a strong statement or a racist statement, we've got some past experience that kind of creates a defense mechanism to address against certain kind of comments and situations. Yep. So thank you, Chase, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both, and thank you for those people who watch these videos, and I know I learned a lot, and it was very helpful for me, and I hope it's helpful for you too. Thank you, Chifon. Thank you, Michael, and you guys have a good night.